4 New Haven police officers have been fired for their misconduct in the arrest of Randy Cox. This marks the final disciplinary phase in a case that made national headlines. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Hector Molina outside the New Haven Police Department with the latest.
The New Haven Police Commission has now voted unanimously to terminate Officer Oscar Diaz and Sergeant Betsy Segui for their roles in Randy Cox's arrest. Now, with the exception of one officer who retired shortly after the incident, all officers involved in that arrest have now been terminated. The final phase of disciplinary action in the $45 million settlement between Randy Cox and the city of New Haven has come to an end. Tonight, the New Haven Police Commission decided the fate of the final 2 officers involved in the arrest that paralyzed Cox when he hit his head while being transported in a van without seatbelts in a June 2022 arrest.
The motion passed for the termination of Officer Oscar Diaz. Recommendation to terminate Officer Betsy Segui has passed.
Officer Diaz and Sergeant Segui were voted to be terminated following the recommendation of New Haven Police Chief Carl Jacobson. These terminations mark a total of 4 officers who have now been let go of the department for their roles in the arrest.
Officers didn't do the right thing here, but on the other hand, we follow through with our commitment to the community that when officers do not follow policy and do the wrong thing, that we hold them accountable.
New Haven Mayor Justin Alliker says these terminated officers still have the chance to appeal tonight's decision with the State Labor Board.
State Labor Board would make a determination then as to whether the Police Commission made the right decision or not. We will continue, if they do decide to appeal the decision, to defend the chief's recommendation, the Police Commission's decision.
Alliker says tonight marks an end to this phase of the investigation, but also a step forward in officers holding their own accountable.
We've trained all of our officers and will continue to train them in duty to intervene so that an officer, when they see another officer maybe making a wrong decision, can intervene so that we can prevent something like what happened to Randy from ever happening again.
With this being concluded, we can now start to heal as a police department and as a community.
Now, the other officer, Ronald Presley, is still being investigated with all the other officers. That criminal investigation is still ongoing. In New Haven, Hector Molina, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Hector.